Mic check 1, 2, 3. Snoop Doggy Dogg, Dr. Dre, ready to cook some stuff up. Let's go. It is a little bit after 2 o'clock. Hey, King Victor B, I am well. Welcome to the party. Glad you stopped by. We're just getting fired. It is 2 o'clock here in Western Colorado, where I live, which makes it 4 o'clock on the East Coast. It is time for some Slay Security Plus. Welcome to the party. If this is your first time joining us, my name is Jesse J, aka the Cosmic Cowboy. And over the next hour or so, we're going to crush some CompTIA Security Plus practice questions, starting things off with some PBQs and go from there. Let me get a little bit of background music dialed up. Let's see how this works. Let's see if we like this. Go. A little bit of background music, so when I have to think or talk, it's not too dry. I hope everybody's doing well out there. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. I had a memorial service last weekend, and that's why we weren't streaming last weekend, but we're back today. So thank you for being part of the community. If you're here watching us live or on Team Replay, we couldn't do this without you. So, King Victor, how are you doing today? Where are you in your journey? Caffeine up. I just finished absolutely slaying a Father's Day feast, Father's Day weekend feast of barbecue. And so I just woke up from a food coma, a much deserved food coma from one of my favorite it's a local barbecue joint, but they're originally from Texas. What did you have? Oh, that's a great question. I got myself a pound of burnt ends, which just melt in your mouth. I got some brisket, pulled pork, smoked sausage, coleslaw, potato salad, and I had a couple bites of mac and cheese, and it was divine. But then I immediately went to sleep. King Victor, I'm good. I'm actually to sit my Security Plus in a few weeks. Excellent. Well, it sounds like you're on the right path. You're showing up to a live study session, and that's one of the ways to help prepare yourself. With that, without further ado, let's get into it. And I want to start things off by thanking our sponsor, ThreatLocker. Hey, listen, do zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks keep you up at night? Well, don't worry anymore and harden your security with ThreatLocker. Worldwide, companies like JetBlue, TrueCar, Edelman, and more trust ThreatLocker to keep their business operations moving and to secure their data. You see, ThreatLocker takes a deny by default approach to cybersecurity and they provide a full audit of every action, allowed or blocked for your risk management and compliance. Their onboarding and their operation is fully supported by their US-based cyber hero support team. If you're interested, tell your friends, tell your bosses, get a free trial. Check out threatlocker.com and help prevent ransomware and ensure compliance. Again, check out threatlocker.com. Let's get into it. King Victor, I've been watching this channel for a while. Great content. Hey, thank you. That means a lot. All right, let's get into the first thing that I like to start off with, which is a PBQ, a performance-based question. When you sit down for your exam on exam day, you're going to get the exam. You're going to pull it up on the screen, and you're going to start off with possibly one and up to 6 performance-based questions. Basically, it's a practical hands-on approach to answering the questions. It's great to think of them almost as a interactive multiple choice. Okay, let's see if we can get this just a tad bit bigger for those on smaller screens. So you're going to get a scenario, and then you're going to get different choices of things that you can do within the performance-based question. Let's start off with our scenario and see what happens. Okay, this is a big one. Now, these CompTIA style security PBQs are a little more stout than what you're going to see on test day, but I think that these demonstrate a really accurate depiction of kind of what to expect with the scenario, and then the drop down, the fill in the blank, drag and drop, click the radio buttons, all the different ways to interact with the PBQ. Let's get started. A mid-sized retail organization plans to move its monolithic e-commerce You can't really see that. Maybe I need to make it a tad bit smaller. Bear with me, folks. Oh yeah. So it was fine. All right. A mid-sized organization plans to move its monolithic e-commerce application to the cloud. The Chief Technology Officer, or CTO, has concerns about minimizing the attack surface, ensuring data protection, and avoiding vendor lock-in. The application handles sensitive customer data, including login credentials and payment information. As the lead security consultant, your primary role is to conduct a high-level security risk assessment. You must analyze how serverless computing and microservices each impact security considerations like data protection, attack surface, and vendor dependencies. Your recommendation should provide the most secure and scalable solution for the organization's specific needs. Well, what are we looking to do? What is the scenario asking us? Well, we want to reduce the attack surface by assessing how each architectural approach inherently limits or expands areas vulnerable to attack. We want to look at data protection, examine how serverless and microservices handle encryption, access controls, data integrity, particularly for sensitive information like login credentials and payment data. We want to check out things like vendor security measures, evaluate the risk of vendor lock-in, and how it might affect the organization's ability to enforce security policies. And lastly, the complexity of the security management. Remember, we don't want to over-complex our security to the point where it's not functional. Consider how each architectural model impacts the ease or difficulty of managing security settings, incident response, and compliance. I have not done this performance-based question before, and so we're going to walk through this one together. We're not going to spend the entire study session on it. Remember, you might get one performance-based question on your test, and you might get up to 6. The more performance-based questions you get, you get less multiple choice questions. Something to keep in mind. Another thing, and I've said this in other live streams, and I'll continue to say this, is as you take your test, it's a smart tactic. It's not the only tactic, but a lot of people recommend that you take the performance-based questions and do them last. Get through all of the multiple choice, because there's more of them, so that's more points you can get. Get through the multiple choice first, and then go to the performance-based questions. Some folks like to kick off their test by hitting, if they see a performance-based question that they can answer in just a few seconds that really stands out to them, they just knock that one out. Other people might start a performance-based question, get bogged down, and then move into the multiple choice. One of the reasons I recommend, and so do others recommend, doing the multiple choice first, it's twofold. Firstly, sometimes doing the multiple choice questions first will help get your cybersecurity juices flowing, your exam juices flowing. It'll help you start to recall all of the things that are on the CompTIA certification study guide and all of the things that are required, so that when you go to answer the performance-based question, you just spent, 60 minutes, really pulling these out of memory and going over the concepts. And so sometimes your brain is just going to be primed to answer the questions. Another thing is sometimes the actual multiple choice questions will provide answers to a performance-based question. And I know they might do that on purpose. Maybe it's just the way that edition of the test is formatted, but many times you'll find answers to a hard performance-based question within some of those multiple choice questions. Let's close this out and look at the question. Operation Tech Takeover, peace and blessings. Peace and blessings to you, friend. Hope all is well, little bro. And if you are confused about microservices and serverless technologies or architectures, you're probably not alone. It's not something that if you come from the on-premises world or you don't spend a lot of time focusing on cloud technologies, that you're probably going to spend a lot of time with. But you can think of it like this. The word serverless, when we talk about serverless technologies, if I was to explain it to somebody else that had no tech, that was brand new to the industry, the word serverless simply means that you're not dealing with the server. There is a server involved. You're just not dealing with it. Typically, we see serverless architectures, things like, I believe, Lambda in AWS, and I can't remember what Azure serverless technology is called. But what we're doing there is we're just putting in the code, the application, and then you're just worrying about your application. You're not worrying about spinning up the VMs, the architecture, the operating systems, the memory, databases. Really, the serverless just means that you don't have to worry about the server, right? That is kind of what we're looking at with that serverless concept. Think of it as I'm a developer. I just want to focus on my code and my application. Then you're going to probably want to use something like a serverless technology. There is a server involved, but just you as the customer, you as the developer, don't have to worry about it. Somebody else is taking care of that. When we think of microservices, you can think of these as just bite-sized services that are containerized, and they're highly scalable and agile, right? You can spin them up, you can shut them down, and they provide just some scalability and some agility within your environment. Sierra Montgomery, out there on I believe it's the beautiful Pacific Northwest. I hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Thanks for checking in on me last weekend. I do appreciate it. We have an awesome community here at Slate Security Plus and the Team Simply Cyber community. Well, let's just take this first question. So we kind of know what we need to do. Reducing the attack surface. Which architecture will inherently limit the attack surface? Our options here are both, microservices, neither, and serverless. Which architecture will inherently limit the attack surface? Both, microservices, neither, or serverless? As you put your answer in chat, and feel free to do so, let's just walk through some of the concepts we talked about. All right, well, so in a serverless environment, when we look at that shared responsibility matrix when we're working in the cloud, we look at that shared responsibility matrix, we know that the more we go from just infrastructure as a service to software as a service, right? We're seeing that the cloud provider has more of a responsibility within the environment. So when I look at this question, I look at and I think serverless. I'm like, well, if all I'm worrying about is the code, I would hope that the cloud provider has the environment that I'm working in fully secured, fully patched, and they're worrying about that. And inherently, that word just means it's already built in. It's inherent to the product, right? Like it's inherent. It's just part of it. There's nothing that is being added to that. So what do we think? Both, microservices, neither, or serverless? I'll give everybody a few seconds to answer in chat, and then if I don't see anything, I'll put what I think, and we'll send this question. I haven't done this one. What do we think, family? What do we believe? Go Broncos. I know that it's not football season, but it's getting close enough to where I need my Broncos pint mug to keep me going. And something else to consider with the performance-based questions is that you do get partial credit for the components of the question you get right. You don't necessarily lose points. You'll lose out on points, but they don't take away points for getting the question wrong or components of the question wrong. And so every little bit of the question you get right, you get partial credit for. That's why it's super important that you just give it your best shot, especially if it's a super hard PBQ or even a super hard multiple choice, because you can get partial credit for components of questions. I'm going to go with both on this one because I think that microservices as well, we're looking at more of the cloud service provider has more of a buy-in on the security with serverless and microservices. I'm going to go with both. I could be wrong, but just from my understanding, which architecture would provide the best encryption and access controls for sensitive data like login credentials and payment information? Both, microservices, neither, or serverless. Which architecture would provide best encryption and access controls for sensitive data like login credentials and payment information? What do we think, team, on this one? Which architecture would provide the best encryption and access controls for sensitive data like login credentials and payment information? I think microservices, right? We can definitely have different different levels of access controls depending on which microservice is being utilized. So I'll go with microservices on that one. Vendor security measures. Which architecture poses higher risk of vendor lock-in affecting organization security policies? Both? I believe both would. Complexity of security management. Which architecture will require granular approach to configuring security settings, managing incident response, and ensuring compliance? I'm going to go with neither. And we have some true or false. Serverless computing generally reduces the complexity of security management. I want to say true. Microservices architectures often require more intricate security settings due to multiple interacting components. True. Vendor lock-in does not significantly impact an organization's ability to enforce its own security policies. False. Tell us that in the scenario. Stateful processes like user authentication are generally harder to manage in a microservice architecture. To manage. True. Slight question mark at the end. Serverless computing typically offers better cost efficiency for short-lived and infrequent requests. True. All right, let's send it. If we get some of it wrong, that's okay. We learned something at the end of the day. 4 out of 9 correct. All right, so we're halfway there. Serverless architectures are managed by the cloud provider, reducing the number of components you need to secure, thus limiting the attack surface. Right. Oh, so only serverless, not both. Okay, I thought that microservices, I guess you'd have to handle those services as well. So that does make sense. Okay, so we were on the same page. We all agreed that serverless architectures are managed by the cloud provider. So we got that part right. Both serverless and microservices can offer robust encryption and access controls. The effectiveness lies in the implementation, not the architecture. So that would have been both. Okay. Serverless computing often ties you to specific vendor tools, potentially affecting your ability to enforce custom security policy. Amazon Web Services Lambda is one of many examples. So we didn't get any of those right, and that's okay. I think we kind of did in my head. What we are thinking on the same path. In serverless, the cloud provider manages the infrastructure, simplifying the security management tasks you have to handle. True. Multiple components of microservices increase the complexity of security settings and communication between services. Okay, so more complex. Being tied to a vendor can limit your flexibility in enforcing your own security measures. Vendor lock-in can limit flexibility enforcing organizational policies. Microservices provide more control over stateful processes, contrary to the statement. Serverless functions, on the other hand, are stateless by their design. Right. Stateful processes like user authentication are harder to manage in microservices architecture. Microservices provide more control. Oh, that makes sense. I see. I misread that question, but yeah, that's correct because we have more control over each of those. All right, so we got a few wrong. That's okay. At the end of the day, let's say we got this question, we submitted it, and we got 4 out of 9 correct. Well, we're going to get points for the ones that we did get correct. Exit it. I want to try this one again. Which one was that? Which one did we do? So we went with serverless because which architecture will inherently limit the attack surface? Built in. Which architecture would provide the best encryption and access controls for sensitive data and login credentials and payment information? I'm gonna go with neither because remember they both provide it, but it's how it's implemented, not necessarily inherent to the architecture. I want to make sure that we're processing and learning from our mistakes. It's a big key in our study sessions. Larry Shervington Jr., welcome back to the party. It has been a while, my brother. I hope you're doing well. I hope you and your family are well and good, sir. And same to you. Same to you. Hashtag Team SC. Which architecture poses a high risk of vendor lock-in affecting the organization's security policies? Serverless. Which architecture will require a granular approach to configuring security settings and managing incident response and ensuring compliance? Believe we're supposed to go with neither here. Serverless computing generally reduces the complexity of security management. True. Microservice architectures are often more intricate security settings due to their multiple interacting components. True. Vendor lock-in does not significantly impact an organization's ability to enforce its own security policies. False. This one's false. Remember, stateful processes like user authentication are generally harder to manage in microservices architecture. So, false. There is more room to implement those in a microservices architecture. And serverless computing typically offers better cost efficiency for short-lived and infrequent requests. Okay, much better. I'm going to take it. Let's move on. Let's get into our practice questions. And before we do that, I want to give a shout out to the Simply Cyber community. Whether you're just getting here, maybe you've been around the block a few times, you're trying to level up your cybersecurity knowledge, your community, check out Simply Cyber because it is a phenomenal community for doing just that.
Are you feeling lost in the vast world of cybersecurity, overwhelmed by technical jargon and confusing career paths? You're not alone. That's why I built Simply Cyber. Hi, I'm Dr. Gerald Ozier. Come join Simply Cyber, your supportive and inclusive community for navigating the exciting world of cyber. There's so much to take advantage of. Master the skills you need with Simply Cyber Academy, offering in-depth courses aligned with the GRC analyst role. Never feel isolated. Connect with fellow cyber enthusiasts and professionals in our thriving Discord server. Ask questions, get feedback, share your journey. Check out the Simply Cyber YouTube channel, delivering insightful interviews. What are your thoughts around, web app pen testing as entry level? And I included bug bounty here because that's very accessible to everybody. Practical skill demos and daily cyber threat briefs, all hosted by industry experts. There's so much more to discover. Are you ready to join the community and empower your future? Visit simplycyber.io/socials for all the links and start your cyber adventure today.
Let's go, Dr. Jerry Ozier. Hope you're doing well out there. I think you're completing a nice long family road trip. So I know from the Slay Security Plus community, Team SC, Team Sippy Cup, can't wait to see you next week. Let's jump into some questions. Feel free to drop your answer in chat. Here we go. A network administrator is cleaning up the company's shared drive resource. Through an audit, the administrator discovered the company did not properly manage the permissions over the years. Which control type should the administrator change the permissions to that gives access determined by the job? So the job that you're doing. A, role-based authentication control, access control. B, multi-factor authentication. C, discretionary access control. Or D, mandatory access control. Drop your answer in chat. If I'm taking the test and I read this question, I would read it again. All right, so a network administrator is cleaning up the company's shared drive resources. Through an audit, the administrator discovered that the company did not properly manage the permissions over the years. Isn't that how it goes? Which control type should the administrator change the permissions to that gives access determined by the job? Well, let's look at a couple answers that we know are not correct. We have multi-factor authentication. Well, this question doesn't mention anything about a secondary form of authentication to prove you are who you are, right? So we don't see anything that is alluding to token-based, who you are, what you know, who you are, what you have. We've seen nothing that is alluding to the second form of authentication. So we can take that answer off. Mandatory access controls, we commonly see this in Windows environments. You don't really get a choice. We just see that the data is set on a particular object, and then you are given a certain amount of, you as the user are set in a group, and that group may or may not have permissions to access said resource. So we don't think it's mandatory access control. King Victor and Larry Shervington are both going with A, role-based access control. And I tend to agree with that, right? Determined by the job, by the role that you are. What role do you have within the company? Your role will determine the level of access you have. Let's go with A and send it. Correct. Role-based access controls means an organization defines its permission requirements in terms of the tasks that an employee or service must be able to perform. Each set of permissions is a role. MFA, on the other hand, is an authentication scheme that requires the user to present at least two different factors as credentials. And in discretionary access control, the resource owner has a primary discretion. Every resource has an owner who creates the file or service, although another user can receive ownership within the assignment. If you ever had to change permissions on a file structure in your Windows environment, you have done just that. Security clearance levels form the basis of mandatory access controls. Rather than defining access control lists on resources, each object receives a classification label. Depending on the clearance level, a subject receives access to that resource. So let's say my cat pictures, they have that object receives the classification label as top secret. Then a subject, depending on my clearance level, then let's say a guest user uses my machine and they're only a guest. Well, they don't have the clearance level. They don't have the top secret to go into that highly confidential. Only people with that top secret clearance can go in, right? But the subject with the lower clearance level cannot. A company wants to set up a single sign-on without passing credentials through each piece of software and cloud service. Which protocol would meet this requirement? A, Kerberos. B, Fast Identity Online. C, Virtual Private Network. Or D, Open Authorization. And by the way, I don't know why they didn't give you what we know open authorization is OAuth. A company wants to set up a single sign-on without passing credentials through to each piece of software and cloud service. Which protocol would meet this requirement? Kerberos we see within the Windows and Active Directory environment. Fast Identity Online, I don't know what that is. Probably should do some research, but it sounds to me like it doesn't apply to this question. Now we're left with VPN and open authorization. Well, a virtual private network is just a way to tunnel your traffic inside in an encrypted tunnel through the wild west of the internet. And OAuth is a single sign-on solution that has been around for a long time that allows you to access those third-party services with the one set of credentials. King Victor and Larry Sherv are both going with D. Anybody else in class have a different answer? Feel free to drop your answer in chat. I'm going to Google what Fast Identity Online is. Oh, FIDO. The set of authentication. Fast Identity Online, which is a set of authentication standards designed to replace passwords with more secure and user-friendly methods like biometrics or security keys. Okay. I guess I didn't realize that that's what FIDO stood for. Good to know. I'm still sticking with my answer of D, OAuth. Open authorization. OAuth is a protocol in the system that facilitates the sharing of information within a user profile between sites. OAuth can be used to implement single sign-on by allowing users to log in once and access multiple applications without passing credentials through to each piece of software. OAuth can be integrated with other mechanisms to provide SSO capabilities and supports OpenID Connect tokens to enhance identity verification where needed. The preferred system for network authentication in a Windows environment is Kerberos, which replaces the legacy system NT LAN Manager or NTLM authentication. Passwordless authentication means the whole system is no longer processes knowledge-based factors. The Fast Identity Online 2 or FIDO with WebAuthn or web authentication specifications provide a framework for passwordless authentication. VPN is how an individual can access corporate resources outside the corporate infrastructure. That is another way to look at it. Moving on. We just learned this in the last question, so I hope we all get it right. Which technology replaced NT LAN Manager in Active Directory? A. Kerberos, B. Virtual Private Network, C. Fast Identity Online or FIDO, or C. Unique Security Identifier. Active Directory is a Windows environment. We know that Fast Identity Online has to do with passwordless authentication. So we know that's not it. We know that VPN or Virtual Private Network is a way to tunnel your traffic and maybe access your corporate resources from your home computer through a VPN. We know that's not it. Is it A. Kerberos or D as in dog, a unique security identifier? King Victor B going with the answer A, Kerberos. I agree. Send it. correct. Unique security identifier. Each system uses a unique security identifier, or a SID, to define user account with a name and a credential. Each account has a profile. This is not specific to our Active Directory environment here that we're talking about. Nor is it well, more importantly, it's not what replaced NT-LAN Manager. A company needs to improve its security posture regarding credentials. Which security policy changes would implement the NIST updated guidelines? A, password reuse. B, single-factor authentication. C, multi-factor authentication. Or D, password history. I think you can only pick one here. That's correct. Well, I don't think implementing NIST guidelines would include single-factor authentication. I think this is explicitly asking us for multi-factor authentication when I see a question like this. King Victor, what do you think? Yeah, King Victor is going with C as well. I agree. I think that is the most complete, or the most relevant answer here. Multi-factor authentication has taken the place of commonly recommended by NIST, coupled with decreasing complexity and age requirements. Additionally, it adds a layer to prevent malicious actors from gaining access. Jessica Barnwell, welcome to the party. Why not password reuse? Well, the NIST updated guidelines did not change password reuse recommendations. The organization recommends people refrain from using passwords across multiple systems or services. They, of course, did not recommend using single-factor authentication. Password history is less of an issue if password complexity and age requirements change and companies add multi-factor authentication. Interestingly enough, they decreased the complexity and age requirements, partly because they felt that having people were more likely to reuse passwords or use bad passwords when you try and add too much complexity and age requirements. Length, so passphrases, but the complexity and the age requirements have actually decreased. We combine that with multi-factor authentication. Let's go. A company is migrating its shared drives to a cloud repository service. While the majority of its drives use job titles for automated access, it has a few one-off project drives that it wants a specific owner to choose who has access to them. Which control type would best fit these one-off drives? A, discretionary access control. B, mandatory access control. C, role-based access control. Or D, multi-factor authentication. It has a few one-off project drives that it wants a specific owner to choose. This word, the owner, specific owner to choose, is the dead giveaway for this question. What do we think, team? Hey, Poner Joe. Good to see you, my friend. What's up, everyone? What's up with you? This is a tough one, but let's go through what we know about the others. And this will narrow it down to a specific answer, right? Multi-factor authentication is what CompTIA calls a scheme. It's a method of providing more than one form of authentication outside of maybe it's a password and a authenticator code, right? Maybe it's a password in a token. Maybe there's no password. Maybe it's just a face, like what you look like, who you are with what you have, right? So it's two factors of authentication. This isn't asking us this. This is saying a specific owner who owns these project drives wants to choose who has access to them. So we know that's not multi-factor. We also know it's already said while the majority of its drive uses job titles for automated access, meaning that whatever my role within the company is what determines the level of access that I have. That's role-based access controls. And we know that with the mandatory access controls, sensitivity types are applied to objects, and then users with different clearance levels either can or cannot access those objects. So we know it's not mandatory access control. The only correct possibility here is discretionary control, and this specific owner to choose, you could take out to choose and put in. It has a few one-off projects that it wants specific owners to have the discretion to assign who has access to them, right? So that's where we get the discretion and discretionary access control is the owner of the file, the owner of the resource can choose who can or cannot access those controls. Send it, correct answer is, as we thought, discretionary access controls. Poner Joe coming in hot. Just finished a study sesh for a Vuln Lab box. It was intense. Glad to see you live, Jesse. I hope you're doing well. Man, I am just absolutely out here slaying it in Western Colorado. It's going to be close to 100 degrees today. Got up early, did some yard work. And then after we're done with Slay Security Plus, if I have some time, I may jump into some Try Hack Me myself or play some games. I am not sure. All right, this will be the final question as far as the CompTIA practice questions go. And the reason is because if you're watching this for the first time or seeing this on Team Replay, I used some money from some work that I did. And instead of getting paid a check, I had the person buy me this CompTIA whole Cert Master, Study Master thing so that we could do it live on Slay Security Plus. I think it's like $500-600, which is a little bit expensive. And I think that the Professor Messer questions are actually far better. I just want people to get used to kind of seeing how CompTIA thinks. And it's also a great resource to go through these questions. During a recent audit, a company noticed a troubling trend where people had their passwords on sticky notes in their work area. The employees stated the password policy made it too difficult to remember them. What policy should the company change to alleviate this issue? A, password complexity, B, password reuse, C, password history, or D, password length. What do we think? We just touched on this. Part of the reason that NIST changed these specific guidelines for your password policies. Remember, we want to partner with people, not police them as security professionals. There's going to be certain levels of risk acceptance we have within our environments. And we want to do the best we can to increase cyber resiliency. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to partner with people so they can get their jobs done in a secure fashion. The most secure fashion that we can afford, that we can provide. I know sometimes you just want to shut it down, turn it off. Full production, things need patched, shut it down. We're going to patch it right now. We're going to patch everything in our environment. Everything needs to be fully up to date and patched. The reality is that's not how it works in many enterprise environments. You have specific downtimes. Bringing a server down to implement some patches, especially if they're not critical patches, might slow production down, which at the end of the day is going to hurt the bottom dollar, the bottom line. And this two things are the most important: human safety and the profitability of the business. Don't get in the way of those two things. Thinking like a manager sometimes. Poner Joe saying first reaction is A. Larry Shervington Jr. is saying the same thing. King Victor B is saying the same thing. Jessica, if you're still with us, what do you think on this question? Basically, at the end of the day, in a recent audit, a company noticed a troubling trend where people had their passwords on sticky notes in their work area. I have seen this in my environment. The employees stated that the password policy made it too difficult to remember them. Which password policy should the company change to alleviate the issue? A, password complexity, B, password reuse, C, password history, or D, password length? Jessica going with A, password complexity. I agree. Let's send it. And the correct answer is modifying the password complexity policy allows for longer but easily remembered passwords that can aid in lowering the number of people saving their passwords insecurely. A password reuse policy would be difficult to enforce as it requires the individual not to use it for other services, even those not connected to the company. Yeah, that's a hard part. The password reuse policy is something that you need to talk to your end users about, hopefully with memes and food, and keep it entertaining. But the understanding that if you use the same winter 2024 exclamation point password for all of your services and one of them gets pwned, then the likelihood that your entire identity get pwned goes way up. Password history policies could help limit the insecure use and reuse of passwords. However, decreasing the complexity would allow for new passwords that are easy to remember. Password length would not necessarily prevent the insecure storage of passwords. It would enforce a minimum, possibly maximum length for the password that would not ensure the password was complex in nature. Dad, I agree. Poner Joe says, what does Jerry say all the time? Let's go for pass phrases instead of passwords. I agree 100%. I will combine 3, 4, sometimes 5 words, sometimes not even in English, words that just kind of mean something to me. You could go like arbitrary, kitchen, appliance, lawnmower. Like, well, that's crazy, but I mean, that's a decent passphrase. Or maybe something that just is a hobby of yours. I know that, yeah, you can OSINT it and figure it out, but at the end of the day, we're talking maybe just people doing brute force attacks. All right, let's move into some Professor Messer questions. I really think they're the best in the business. They're highly affordable.